Okay, people, welcome to these new lessons. This time we are going to study the bilabial stops on this video. The next video is going to be about the alveolar stops. Remember, the bilabial stops are p and b, okay? So we need to practice those sounds in order to produce them correctly when we speak. So let's read the book, okay, this book, lesson 4, the bilabial stops. Okay, the bilabial stops are p, b, and m. Okay, okay, p and m are called bilabials because the articulators to produce them are both the upper and the lower lips. Remember that. Always when we produce these three sounds, we need to use the upper and the lower lips. As explained above, p and b are oral and m is nasal. So that is the difference between those three sounds. P and b are counterparts since they are pronounced in the same way, except that the former is voiceless and the latter is voiced. Remember that? If they differ only in one feature, then they are called counterparts. Likewise, b and m are also counterparts since they only differ in that b is oral and m is nasal. P and b form the class of sounds specified as minus continuant plus bilabial. He says, note the sound along with the other nasals and will be discussed separately. So we are going to study them in another lesson, in a future lesson. Okay, the sounds p and b are called stops because to produce them we close our lips completely, blocking the passage of the air through the oral cavity. When we suddenly open the lips to produce a word or syllable initial before a stressed vowel, a puff of breath is heard. This breath puff is called aspiration, and I'm going to explain that more profoundly later. Represented, okay, the symbol for aspiration is this little h uh, at the top of any of the letter. Okay, for example, the letter P in narrow transcription. We are going to see transcriptions in future lessons too. If you put your hand in front of your mouth as you pronounce the P, as in pin, you will feel this puff of air. The vocal cords do not vibrate when we articulate this sound. Okay, why not? Because remember that the sound P is voiceless or unvoiced. I'm going to explain the concept of aspiration in some minutes. Okay, the sounds P and B are called stops, where I already read this text. Now let's continue with this. It says B is pronounced exactly the same, except that the vocal cords do vibrate and there's no aspiration. P and is then a voiced sound. Remember, we only have aspiration with in this case with the sound p. Okay, both p, sorry, both p and b form combinations with other consonants. The combinations of two or more sounds are called clusters. Clusters, remember this concept, clusters. There are combinations of two or more consonant sounds. For example, we have here the word prize, splash. In this case, we have two letters, P, P, and R. In this case, we have the letters S, P, and L. Blow, B and L. And rubs, for example, the combination of letters B and S. They contain clusters with P and B. Okay, P and B. Remember, when we have these letters between slashes, then you have to pronounce them how it is produced. Okay, P and B. The letter P, in this case is the letter P, is silent in words such as receipt, course, cupboard, psychology, and some. Okay, in these words, you don't pronounce the letter P. In these cases, the letter P is silent. The letter B is also silent when it occurs where finally after as in lamb. Okay, you don't have to try to pronounce that B here because it is silent. You only pronounce the M. Lamb, come, climb, bum. Okay, so you don't have to force your mouth to produce the B at the end. You don't have to say bumb. No, bumb. No, it's not bumb, it's bum. Only bum. The latest, in this case, the last letter B is silent. Remember that in these words. And in words such as plumber, you don't say plumber, you say plumber. You don't say doubt, but you say doubt. Doubt. And the other one is debt. Debt. So you don't have to say debt. So it is silence in this. It is silent in these words, and there are some others. Okay, these are only some examples for you to know the rule. So when we pronounce the sound p, in this case, remember the organs of speech that intervene in this case is the lips. Okay, we have to press them together, and the airstream is stopped and then exploded. So when you produce this sound, you say you feel like an explosion in your mouth because there's a release of air when you pronounce it, when you say a word with this letter, above all at the beginning of the word. For example, the word Panama. Panama, you will feel a puff of air, and that is what we call in English aspiration. And also another thing important here is that the vocal cords don't vibrate. Okay, don't vibrate, and if they don't vibrate, then this sound is voiceless or unvoiced. And here I have here we have some possible pronunciation problems. It says the consonant is familiar to speaker of most languages. However, p is much more explosive in English than it is in other languages. When speaking English, p at the beginning of words must be produced with strong aspiration or it might sound like B. So it is one problem. This is one problem that you may have if you don't aspirate the sound correctly. Okay, if you forget to aspirate the P at the beginning of these words, for example, the words bear will sound like bear or pat will sound like bat. So you need to pronounce or you need to produce, you need to apply the aspiration rule here at the beginning. Pair, pat, Panama, pilot. You see? When P follows the S, as in spot, spend, spy, it is not aspirated. So in these three cases and in any other case that you have the cluster, the S plus the P, there's no aspiration here. So you don't have to try to aspirate the word here. Spot, spend, spy. It is not aspirated. Practice saying P by loosely holding a tissue in front of your lips. If you aspirate correctly, releasing a puff of air, the tissue will flutter or will move. So people, take a piece of paper right now, any paper, and you put it in front of your mouth, okay? Put it in front of your mouth and repeat or say any word containing the p at the beginning of that word. For example, if I pronounce the word Panama, Panama, you have to produce it, uh, making a release of air, and you will see that this puff of air will move the piece of paper. So you say piece, or you say pat, or you say Panama. You have to release the puff of air, and that is what we called aspiration. Okay, do that exercise, please. Do that exercise. And if the page or the piece of paper moves, then you are applying correctly the aspiration rule. Okay, if the piece of paper doesn't move, that means that you are not pronouncing the p correctly. Okay, do that exercise to practice this aspiration rule. So poof, 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 and you will pronounce a perfect p, a perfect p, a perfect p. Okay, in these words here you have the aspiration at the beginning. Poof, poof, poof. You will pronounce a perfect p. Okay, so people, now that you have listened this short explanation about this uh, interesting sound, then you will have some other possible problems, but now with the sound b. Okay, remember that the articulators that intervene here are the lips. You have to press them together too, like as for p. The airstream is stopped and then exploded. Vocal cords vibrating. So you see, so that is the difference between the p and the b. The vibration, voicing is the difference. In this case, the b, you will feel a vibration in your vocal cords. So possible pronunciation problems. Although the consonant b is a simple sound to pronounce, you may confuse it with the sound v. Okay, you may confuse it because they sound similarly. They sound similar. So there's some difficulty here because we as Spanish speakers, we usually don't uh, make a difference between the two sounds in Spanish. For example, if I want to say vainilla, vainilla, you know that vainilla is with the letter V, right? But we say it in Spanish vainilla, vainilla. And if you say that, people will understand you, right? But in English, it is not the case. In English, you have to pronounce the different sounds correctly. Because if you don't pronounce it correctly, then people will understand another word or maybe will misunderstand what you're saying. So that is why it is important to pronounce correctly in English. Because in English we have many homophones. What is a homophone? A homophone is a word or two words, different words that are pronounced similarly. You see? Okay. We have here one example. If you say v instead of b, boat will sound like vote. You see? So that is why I told you that if you don't make a difference in vibration here or in voicing or making this sound correctly, okay, in this case, both sounds um, are voiced sounds, you see. But in this case, you have to use two lips, both, both. But when you say vote, then you are using teeth and lips. Okay, people, you need to pay attention to this and be careful when you pronounce these words or any other word because they sound similarly. When b is the last sound in a word, many speakers forget to make their vocal cords vibrate. This will make b sound like p and confuse your listeners. So people, that is why it is important to know the concept of voicing. Voicing when a sound vibrates and when it doesn't vibrate. Examples, if you say p instead of b, robe will sound like rope or cab will sound like cap. So here we need to make a distinction here. This one is voiced, this one is voiceless because we have here the B, we have here the P. And this, in this case, the P is pronounced P, and in this case, with the B, it is this is pronounced B. So the consonant B will be easy to say if you make your vocal cords vibrate and firmly press your lips together. He says, be sure to say B with a boom and you will be at your best. Yes, exactly. people, and in this case we have some exercises here on your book. Please go to your book and do these exercises. You have to practice in the first part the minimal pairs, okay? They are words that are pronounced similarly except by one feature. For example, in this case you say pie, and this one is buy. Pit, bit. Pay, bay. Pet, bet. Pull, pull. Bull. Mop, mob. Cup, cub. Rope, robe. Cap, cab. Simple, symbol. So um, practice these minimal pairs. And practice reading these sentences allow making a clear distinction between the p and the b sounds in the bold-faced words. Bold-faced words are these ones: buy, pie, bit, bet, pet, cup, cup, simple, simple, and practice those sentences, please. It is your responsibility to practice. And here we have another exercise, exercise 3. Your instructor will read the following sentence using one of the words in parentheses. Circle the word that you hear. Well, we'll develop this exercise when we are in a synchronous session. Okay, so you don't have to practice this exercise number 3. However, you have to practice this exercise number 4. It says practice reading these words containing consonant clusters. Okay, remember, a cluster is a combination of two consonants together. Please help, bring, spoons, slept, lamps, president, attempts, price, um, read, sharply, jump, play, rub, speaks, stamps, bumped, black, rubbed, splash. Read these sentences. Be sure not to pronounce silent P and silent B. So be careful in this exercise. If you don't know if it is not pronounced, then you can consult any other resource. You may go to Google and see or investigate if, for example, in this case, the P is pronounced. So that is your task. You have to investigate. And okay, this is the same. Now I'm going to continue with the next topic, lesson 5, which is the alveolar stops. But I'm going to record another video about it. When you finish watching both videos, you will have some extra exercises for you to practice. But I will explain that in a future video. So see you on our next video.